warm welcome to you as together we reflect on Matthew's Gospel, chapter 2, verses 13 through 23. This is the account of the Magi coming to worship the child Jesus in Bethlehem. The Magi were Zoroastrians, that is, a religion of high ethical and moral excellence. They were mystics practicing. They were very learned. It's a culture that valued education very highly. Keen observers of natural phenomenon and the natural world. Their understanding of maths and the stars at that time was unparalleled. And Zoroastrianism is now 4,000 years old, but already at this point it was 2,000 years old. I'm not going to look at the historicity of this text or Matthew's Gospel, although there are things of interest there. But I'm going to look at the theological and mystical implications of this text. So theologically, we see that the rulers of this world, the political wash of power and darkness operates, and a large number of children are murdered as a result. We also see Herod lie when he says he'd like to worship the child, trying to con the Magi. And we see a prefiguring of the crucifixion as one of the little boys of this cohort escapes to Egypt and then back into Israel to Nazareth in Galilee. But of course he doesn't ultimately escape. He too is murdered for political and religious reasons. We see the religious authorities, along with Herod, advising him, and hence the Magi about where the next Messiah is supposed to come from. But there doesn't appear to be any interest in them to follow that up or to follow the Magi. So they have a good grasp of the texts, and religion, with all spelt in capitals, but it seems a very poor grasp, if at all, on the life of God in the history they're living through. We see this too at the trial of Jesus. And as we see the political class and the church and other religious groups use children in the most dreadful way and cover up for their misdeeds and sugarcoat them. This obviously resonates with us too. In the more mystical dimension, we can look first at the Magi, at the very long journey that they're prepared to make to worship a child of a different religion and this new king to be born. This shows a huge degree of wisdom in the biblical sense, that is, wise to the ways of God as well as wise in the ways of the world, as we see when they give Herod the slip. We see Joseph, who is able to understand God speaking to him through an angel, but only in his sleep. He doesn't, like Mary, encounter angels, messengers from God in his waking life. Ultimately, it's his care for his family that operates strongly in Joseph, rather than a deep understanding of God's love and purposes and the way he is involved in that. The Magi clearly expected to find this child they were looking for in much more glorious circumstances rather than in this relative poverty. We can tell by the gifts that they brought and the fact that they went through Jerusalem first. But their deep, more mystical understanding of the way God works allows them to fully accept what they find and to worship this child. And we might imagine that on their way home, as they saw other children, other babies, even perhaps reflected on their own children back at home, as they observed the natural world, that the vulnerability and the beauty and the fragile nature of life and God's work through it all was more and more apparent to them. In Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 9, we hear that nations shall come to your light and kings to your dawning brightness. And the church has always understood the visit of the Magi to be a symbol, a precursor, and at the same time the beginning of the opening up of God's love to the Gentiles, working through thousands of years, eventually to you and to me. So as we ponder all of that, we can also take Isaiah's wisdom and indeed mystical insight for ourselves as well. He says, arise, wake up. In other words, get up, wake up, and shine, for your light has come.